Welcome to After the Paycheck, the series dedicated to helping people to and through the retirement process. This week, I am here with Sam Lang, founder and CEO. You always have different glasses every time.
You know why? Because I sat down. I'm like, these are my reading glasses, and I can't even see, so I'm taking them off.
I love it. Like, I actually finally went to the eye doctor.
Is my age showing? Is that why?
No. I just love. I'm someone who likes to have options but I've had the same pair of sunglasses or same pair of glasses for like 3 years now. And my daughter Daphne, 2.5, got a hold of them the other day, and they have a big gouge right in the middle of the lens. Yep. So I'm getting a new pair, and I'm like, I was looking at frames the other day, so they're on my mind. So I always think of, you always have a couple of different pairs of glasses, and I thought that
I got driving glasses, I have reading glasces.
So now you are actually saying your age. Now
there you go. As soon as I turned 50, all of a sudden I needed glasses.
I recently found out I have an astigmatism. So all these years, I have new glasses now that I'm gonna hopefully correct that. And make things better.
One of these days, I'm getting LASIK. So
I keep saying that too.
I keep saying that.
We are back for our first episode of After the Paycheck this year. It's been a while since we've hung out and really seen each other. Yeah,
especially working remote. So it's great to be here.
Yeah, it is always great to get out of the house and kind of
actually see a human being. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you for this. And what we did is over the holidays, we actually did a survey and asked people who are watching After the Paychecks what some topics are that they want to have discussed over starting the new year. And one of them was about what to do if you've inherited money. So we're going to play a couple of different things here, and we're going to talk about different types of inheritance you can receive, how you can access that type of inheritance, and what your options are really, and what the consequences are of some of those actions that you might take. But I really wanted to kind of take a moment to understand that, number one, if you've inherited money, there's probably some sort of a grieving process you're going to have, right?
Had a conversation with somebody just the other day, and she said, my husband died 3 months ago. I don't know really quite what to do. And then I started talking to her about where she's living. So she lives in the suburbs. I said, well, you're going to stay there? She says, no, I'm looking at this place. I'm going to maybe rent at that place. And the first place she went to was too small. The second place was perfect. I followed with an email, and she said, I kind of wish I didn't sign the lease because I found this other place that I wanted to buy, but maybe I shouldn't buy it because I already have 2 mortgages. I have 3. Now it's going to be 3 houses. And I said to her, listen, slow down, take a deep breath. Yeah. Because you wouldn't even have time to grieve. Right. And now you're taking on like so much on your plate, like it's too early. Right. So, that's a long-winded answer, but yeah, you have to have some time to grieve, to think, to sort of reset, because now you're entering a different part of your life, especially when a spouse dies.
That's a good point. Yeah. So I think initially the question was like, what to happen if you inherit money from like a parent or like a estranged uncle or something like that. But you're raising a really good point here. Like and those are emotions that you still have to process. Yeah. But if you have a spouse that passes away, that's a very different kind of emotion.
That's heavy duty.
So yeah, I think step number one before we go into the rest of what we're going to talk about here is just take a moment. If you are someone who has come into some sort of inheritance, just take a moment to breathe and kind of process your emotions.
Yeah, we've been in business long enough that we actually have clients that pass away. Yeah. So we'll have a beneficiary, a wife, a kid, call and say, okay, my so-and-so died last week. What do I need to do now? You know what? You don't really need to do like anything immediately. Right. There's obviously time that, there's certain accounts that you have, some time limits to taking care of things, but it's not like it's got to be done tomorrow.
Right.
So, like you said, you should take time to just take a deep breath and reset and then think.
Right. You mentioned time limits, so let's actually start to get into the topic so that way we can find out what those time limits are for some of the types of inheritance you might receive. So the first one is something that I've been working with you guys long enough that I understand that there's kind of a difference here where it's money, but that money could be cash or it could be in like a trust or something like that, right? And that's 2 different types of ways to inherit money, right?
There's a lot of different types of money. It could be after-tax money. It could be pre-tax money like a 401k. I'm sure you're going to ask me about that. Yep. But you brought up trusts. Oftentimes people inherit money that's in a trust. Okay. And if it's in a trust, chances are there's a reason why it's in a trust. Maybe it's to avoid probate. But a lot of times we find that maybe you're referring to a situation where like a parent could have passed away, left some money to a child. Now a child's not a child anymore. It's an adult It's a grown, what's
Person.
the word? person like me. But there might be language in there that says, this is how I want you to take the money out. Not at once. Maybe it's designed for the benefit of that person because maybe the parent knew,
Okay.
hey, you know what? He's not very good with money, and he'll blow it too quickly.
Right.
Or maybe I don't like his wife, and she'll get him to buy the house that he can't afford. That type of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So if it's left in trust, it might be done by design, and it might say. And sometimes we've set up trusts. We've helped clients set up trusts to say, hey, look, why don't we give the child, could be an adult child, the money over, say, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Yep.
And to give them, a little bit of income every year, or just to prevent that person from spending all the money at once. So that might be something like in a trust.
Okay.
If that's what you're asking.
Exactly. Yeah. So so how will I know if my inheritance is in a trust? So does a lawyer
you'll
call
know.
me, or do I call somebody like?
Well, if you're a beneficiary, at some point you're going to know.
Okay.
Somebody dies, there's paperwork and that keeps coming, and it gets piled up. And if the first thing you'll see is probably the title. So if it's, in my case, it's not in my name anymore. It's in the same land revocable trust, or the same land irrevocable trust. So that's a pretty good hint that it's in a trust.
Trust. Yep.
And it's probably put in a trust for a reason, to avoid probate. There might be an attorney that helped that person with the trust. So, naturally that attorney should get notified, and you just have to, get that ball rolling, get that process rolling.
What is that process like? So let's say I am someone who's inheriting a part of a trust, or a trust has been, bequeathed to me. How do I access? Is it just a simple, the lawyer cuts a check and it comes to me, or the bank that the trust was done?
I mean, you're oversimplifying it,
okay.
but it could be. So I'll give an example, personal example.
Okay.
My mom died 4.5 years ago, and she had a house, a little bit of money in the bank, and a small IRA. And there's 5 children. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I have 4 older sisters. And my mom named me as the trustee.
Okay.
She died in April, and the trust was dissolved by August.
Okay.
So 4 months or so later. And what was in the trust was a house. So I was the representative of that trust. I put up the house. I interviewed realtors, sold the house, got the money into the trust. We paid all of the estate debts. There wasn't any. And then I just cut checks.
Okay.
And it was that simple. And then the trust dissolved. My sisters all got their checks. It was a small amount. And all of the grandchildren got a share, those 14 grandchildren. They got a small inheritance from their grandmother, so it was a nice gesture.
Nice.
But it was done and over with in 4 months, and you could do whatever you want with that money.
Okay. Okay. So once you have that money, it's kind of, you can do
yours.
Okay. But if there's a trust, like you're saying, where there's a larger sum of money where it could be kind of dripped to people, that's an option too?
Yeah, and it's an option, again, put in place and done by design by the grantor, the person that put the money in.
Okay.
Because of a particular reason.
Okay.
Right? Maybe that beneficiary just can't handle money, or maybe it's a house and they want the house to stay in the family because it could be a vacation home that everybody enjoyed. You know, that type of thing.
Okay. So now we're kind of leaning now into real estate. So let's say I inherit real estate. What are my options there?
If you inherit real estate outright,
chances
are, if it's in that person's name that died, and it goes to, let's say, one person, that person gets that house with what they call stepped up in basis. And it's just it's a great word, because that essentially equates to there's no income tax due.
Oh, okay.
So stepped up in basis is very simple. So today, let's say I bought a house for $100,000. That doesn't exist. That's a terrible example. But let's say 30 years ago, I bought a house for $200,000.
Yeah.
And today I sell it for $1 million.
Okay.
Well, I know there's exemptions, marital exemption, $500,000, this and that. But if I sold it today and there was a gain, there's some income taxes due.
Right.
If I died with that house that I paid $200,000 for, and today's value, that my date of death value was $1 million, I turn around and my son inherits that house and sells it 3 months from now for $1 million, he pays 0 income tax.
Oh, wow.
Because it's stepped up in the cost basis which went from $200,000 to $100,000.
Okay.
So he sells the house, he gets $1 million, so he can do whatever he wants with it.
That's really good to know. So I was trying to think of like other options, like, oh, if you didn't want to pay that taxes, but it sounds like, would you call it stepped up basis?
Stepped up basis, right.
Stepped up basis that there's no income tax that you pay on that gains. That's
Very important to know
Yeah.
because a lot of times people shoot themselves in the foot. As an example, let's say I'm married, I have one child. I'm 80 years old, I love my son. He's going to get the house. Who else is going to get it, right?
Right.
So I say, you know what? I'm just going to sign the house over to him now because he's going to get it. We'll make it nice and easy, and it's out of my name, so I don't have to worry about anything.
right.
Well, you shot yourself in the foot because that erases the stepped up in basis.
Okay.
So same example, I buy the house for $200,000. It's worth $1 million. I sign it to my son. Well, guess what? My son's basis when I die is $200,000, not $1 million.
Ah.
So now he gets killed in taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you probably just made somebody $600,000.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So that's the pro of hanging on to your house. So now I'm going as if you were the grantor, like you said,
Sure.
the person writing your will or your estate. That's something that you'd want to consider. If you're inheriting it, the house, if you or maybe you're talking with somebody about this now, that might be a good thing to say, like, oh, actually, don't sign the house to me now. We actually should wait until you pass to have me.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's pros and cons, and
Yeah.
I think what you were leading to was, well, that sounds great, but what's the downside?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the downside would be if I kept it in my name and I didn't put it into trust or really didn't do anything, because all I thought of was stepped up in basis. I want my son to get it and not pay any income taxes. And let's say I go into a nursing home. Then guess what? It's in the state of Massachusetts. Well, they can essentially put a lien on the house because let's say I ran out of all my money and I'm in a nursing home.
Okay.
And the Commonwealth is paying my bill. Well, they want to get paid back.
Okay.
So that could be the downside for holding on to real estate. Listen, at the end of the day, there's always pros and cons, and there's always a flip side to the coin.
Yeah.
But it's understanding what your situation is and what you should do about it to get, the most benefit. Because there's really no two people are alike. No two situations are alike.
Right.
You know.
Is there, if I were to put something into a trust and then the trust was sent over to my son or daughter or whoever it may be, the beneficiary, is that still qualified for the
yeah, done correctly, most times it's an irrevocable trust and they do get stepped up in basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It happened to a friend of mine. Just, she actually sent her mom to us many years ago. Mom passed away and she got the house and there was no taxes due after she sold it. So it was a beautiful thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's go back to kind of, I guess it's still money, but let's say we were talking about like, oh, if you lose a spouse and you inherit, let's say their 401k or their IRA or anything like that, what are your options there? Can you just take that, or is it like, let's say I'm under the age of 59 and my spouse dies?
So you're talking about a spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, the spouse is really the only person that can step into your shoes and sort of have the same rules and rights. So give me an example.
Again, I'm 55 and my wife is 56. She passes away. She has $600,000 in her 401k and another $200,000 in a Roth.
Okay.
Like, what are my options?
So you would do a spousal assumption.
Okay.
And basically it's just taking her name off, putting your name on.
Okay.
You'd have to follow the same rules now because you can't really touch that money till you're 59 and a half.
Okay.
All right. Whereas it's a lot different if you're not leaving it to a spouse. So maybe it's an example of, your father who's 85, has $1 million 401k, passed away and left it to, his 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get complicated here, but there was recent legislation as part of the Secure Act that sort of got tucked in. There was a lot of good things that happened with the Secure Act that allowed sort of tax breaks for the general public.
Yep.
But one of them was really, at the end of the day, doing away with what they call inherited IRAs or stretch IRAs.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about that in a previous ATP recording, but that's really where a non-spouse, could be a child, a cousin, a best friend,
right,
inherits that money, and instead of taking it out a little bit at a time, like over their lifetime,
Yep.
that's been accelerated, and they have to take it out. They can take it all at once. They can leave it alone for 5 years and then take it out all at once. But they have to take everything out within a 10-year period.
10 years, yeah.
Which essentially means if it's a pretty big number, that just means Uncle Sam gets to get his money on an accelerated basis, which is really what he wanted.
Yep.
So they can get some taxes from you to, pay off some of the money that we owe as part of the national deficit.
Right. Like what you're saying makes so much more sense, because let's say I am 45 and I inherit money from my parents who died. Like you said, it's $500,000 instead of taking 10 grand a year, so that way I don't bump up into the next tax bracket, right? You're saying is like kind of like the loophole that I think a lot of people would do. Uncle Sam has shortened it, say, no, you got to take that within 10 years.
Yeah.
So now, even if I broke it over 10 years, I'm likely going to get jumped up to, well, not
You're
likely,
gonna
but
get,
I might.
you're gonna get whacked in taxes,
Right.
and essentially that account that could have been tax deferred for a long time
Yeah.
is now been broken by year 10. Right? Because, there's been instances where we've seen people, you're 45 years old, you inherit an account, it earns 6 or 7%, and you take out 3%. Well, guess what happens? That account's getting bigger and bigger and larger, and then that person dies and leaves it to their children, and it gets done all over again.
Becomes generational wealth kind of a thing. Yeah.
That strategy is gone.
Okay.
10 years, you have to deplete that entire account.
And if you don't, what are the repercussions?
They'll probably audit you, and you'll have to.
Gotcha. Okay. Either way, they're going to get their
I'm not
money.
so sure what the repercussions are, but
Yeah,
you have to pay the tax.
Just no.
You can't.
I sent out that email for what the tax rates are going to be for 2021 to our database, and I had the little Snoopy thing like, "Dear IRS,
yeah.
I'm unsubscribing for your list."
I wish it was that easy.
Yeah, right.
Unsubscribe. See you later.
I'm out. See you later, IRS. What are some other accounts that I'm thinking of, or other things that you could inherit that I'm not thinking of?
Well, Roth IRAs is a wonderful
Roth,
tool.
okay.
And we've been sort of big proponents of why it makes sense to do some Roth conversions.
Right.
When we
Especially
still
now.
Yeah, when we still, with the new administration, maybe that loophole is changing, or it's going to get closed sooner rather than later. But as we speak today, as we're recording this, it's still in effect. And if you do everything properly and you have a Roth IRA, you can actually shelter those taxes for a long time, forever.
Yeah.
And it's just, even if you have to take the money out over 10 years, it comes out income tax free, which is
Perfect.
big difference
Yeah.
versus taxable.
Could let's say I inherited $250,000 of a Roth IRA. Could I then reinvest that money, or
Yeah.
would that be silly, or
Well, it would still be in a Roth IRA. Maybe you have a different methodology on how you invest it. Maybe your father.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I
Maybe
got
your
you now,
father
duh.
was, a bank guy, and he had, 1% paying CDs, and you're 45, and you're like, well, what am I doing that for? I'll buy 10 different mutual funds and
Yep.
take on some risk. So ultimately, how you invest that money after you inherit that money, and if it's yours, now you're the rightful owner.
Yep.
There might be tax consequences, but how you invest that's ultimately up to you.
Okay. And going back to let's say I'm 55, my wife is 56, she passes, and I inherit her Roth IRA. Am I allowed to make any adjustments to that, even though I'm not 60 yet, or am I allowed to
Adjustments meaning
adjustments in the strategy?
You can again, it's your account. You can
Oh,
do
it is?
whatever.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, you
You've
can do whatever.
assumed it, and
you did a spousal assumption. You can do whatever you want. I mean, I think the only time you might not that's not an accurate phrase is you might inherit something in trust. The trust might say, so and so is the trustee, and he has to invest it, using bank CDs or whatever.
Oh, if it's
and
written
and you want to do something entirely different. But the money was not in a Roth IRA or an IRA. It's just in a trust account.
Okay.
And the trustee essentially has full discretion on how that money is invested. Okay. So that might not match up with what you want to do.
Right.
That's kind of probably the only time I can think of that you wouldn't have to say.
Let's flip the coin here, because I think we're starting to talk about it already, is let's say I'm someone who is trying to think of my family in the future, and I want to make sure that they are set up to be successful or have the optimal type of inheritance. you were just talking about like, oh, and is creating the trust so that way they have to do certain things this way, or maybe it allows them to avoid certain, probate actions or taxes.
I mean, I think it comes down to where you are in your journey.
Okay.
Right? If somebody passes away and leaves, and I'll just use myself as an example. Let's say I'm not that I'm 40 years old, because I got 2 pairs of glasses. But let's say I'm 40. Let's say I work for a big tech company and it's been bought and I made a killing, and I actually don't need that inheritance. So maybe I don't invest that money as if it was mine, that I'm going to use it 10 years from now or 20 years from now. But I know I have enough money for myself, but I got 3 kids.
Yep.
Maybe I want to use that money for them, ultimately, and give them a stepping stone, for their retirement. So that investment philosophy might be entirely different than, as an example, let's say I'm not 40, but I'm 62. And I got the same kids, and they all went to private school and private colleges, and I just didn't do a good enough job saving for my own retirement.
Okay.
Now, I actually, not that I was looking forward to that, but I guess I was looking forward to that. I needed that money, and I'm going to use it, 3 years from now when I retire. I might quote unquote invest that money entirely different, maybe be a little bit more conservative, because I know that's going to be an income strategy portfolio rather than a growth portfolio strategy. Yeah. So that's, I think where you are in life will have some say and probably dictate where the money goes.
Okay.
Does that make some sense?
It does. Yeah. It actually brings me to my next question. So let's say I have an idea of what I want my, estate to be like set up for at one age, and I talk to a lawyer and I kind of set it up in that way. And then a few years go by and then I'm like, oh, things have changed. Can I then go back and make changes to that?
Sure.
Let's say
it's your money.
Okay.
No differently than if it was just your money that you started with and was yours to begin with, and it was your contribution, not your parents' contribution that they left to you. Because at the end of the day, it's your account.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's no as soon as I meet with a lawyer, this is set in stone, and I can't make any changes to my estate.
I mean, I don't want to say it never is a situation like that, because it could be.
Right.
But in most cases, that's not the case.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to take steps to do something now because you're unsure of what it might be in a few years. You're better off. I shouldn't say better off, but there's always that option that you can change it later.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said earlier, if you inherit money, it really depends on where you are in life. If you don't need the money, maybe you invest it one way, versus if you need the money tomorrow, maybe you're a little bit more conservative. So it really depends on where you are. If you're 10 years away from retirement, maybe you're within 5 years away from retirement. Maybe, you're 68 years old. Like my sisters inherited money from my mom. My mom died at 95.
Okay.
At that time, my older sister now is 77, so she was probably 73.
Okay.
So at that time, I was 49. So, what I do with my money is different than what my sister at 73 did with her money.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So where it goes it's depending on that person.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And if there's ever questions somebody has when they inherit money, are there options? Where can they go?
Well, hopefully there's a team of people, or at least a confidant or a lawyer that the person passed away has helped them set up their estate plan. There's, you can get information on the internet these days, right? But I think and I used an example earlier, the woman that lost her husband, she rented a place, was going to maybe buy another place. I had a conversation with her, and really and I'm not a lawyer, but when we started Rubino and Lang, Rich Rubino was a lawyer and did a lot of the legal work, but we've affiliated ourselves with good partners, and this is going to sound goofy, but you can get everything done under one roof.
Yep.
And that's what she said. She said, you know what, and she was a referral to us, and one of the things that was appealing to her was that, you guys can handle the money. You, John Ryan, can do a good job and all that, and build me an income plan and investment plan. But I need some estate planning done. I need to clean up my husband's, when he passed, his situation, go through probate, what have you, but then set myself up to make sure that my 3 kids, she has 3 sons, are taken care of. So we have affiliations and sort of partnerships with really good, qualified folks, and that's who you should really talk to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure that this might have raised more questions. So if you have any and you're not already at afterthepaycheck.com, feel free to head over there and fill out the form at the bottom of that with the little comment section, or visit rowealthpartners.com, and you can find out ways to contact us to get more information on estate planning if you have any questions.
Or call Adam.
Or call me. Don't call me. Don't. Sam, thank you very much for the time.
Great being here.
I was trying to think of a quip right there, but I got nothing.
You got nothing. Let's just call it a day.
We'll call it a day. Thank you again for the time.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Hopefully I'll see more of you much more in the future with everything going on. The future looks bright for this year. And again, if you're not already at afterthepaycheck.com, feel free to head over there, subscribe to future episodes of After the Paycheck and a couple of the other stuff that we have going on for this year that I think you're really going to enjoy. So until next time, take care.